most genocides happen when one group is relatively disarmed. Their military power is low, um, and it's difficult for them to fight back against that genocide. If a marginalized group has um, the power to stand up against that, it's like, oh, hang on a minute, let's talk about this.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the A Better Way to a podcast. We are here this week with the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club. Now, is that I've seen John Brown Gun Club on a lot of different accounts and different pages. Are you guys like a chapter of a larger John Brown Gun Club, just for our own edification here, or are you? Is that just
It's kind of just
iconography that you
the
guys
iconography
that
of
a
it.
bunch of different people use?
Most John Brown gun clubs are kind of run anonymously and or autonomously and independently. Um, so we do have communication with other clubs occasionally, but there's not like a nonprofit or governing body of the club or anything wild like that, national scale.
Sure, sure. You know, that's how John Brown would have done it.
Absolutely. So for we haven't actually introduced these guests yet. We have Tex and Bubble from the Fort John Brown Gun
Yeah.
Club. Um, just so we know who's talking, and we really appreciate you guys coming on. This I think this is going to be a pretty awesome episode, and we've had a lot of people ask to have you guys on. So there are definitely we have questions from people. We have questions of our own. Definitely a lot of interest, and I think with the current state of things, people are super interested in what they can get out of a John Brown Gun Club. Feel free to talk specifically about yours, but um, my first question is, what is the importance of a left-leaning space in the gun community versus what's stereotypically available? Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, John Brown Gun Club, for those who don't know, is primarily like a leftist engaging gun club. It's not a right wing fuddy gun club that we see that we're used to seeing. Um, but if you guys want to explain a little bit more about what you guys do and maybe talk
And
about
why
why
it's
that's
important to be
why it's
leftist in the gun
beneficial,
space.
that would be awesome.
Yeah, so I think things have been changing a lot in terms of, traditionally people think of the left being against guns, um, but a lot of leftists have decided that we need to arm ourselves. I mean, we're mostly in different marginalized groups, whether that be LGBTQIA groups or racial minorities. Um, and so as things have gotten scarier, a lot of people from liberals to leftists, and I think a lot of people don't understand what leftists are. There's a lot of different kinds of leftists. There are anarchists, there are communists, there are socialists, and all of these different uh, ideological groups. But all of them, and also just your run-of-the-mill liberals, um, have been buying guns, wanting to get armed, wanting to learn about um, self defense training. And there really just hasn't been space for it in the pre existing gun community, the pre existing self defense community. You've got um, these spaces that are dominated by police officers and veterans and, um, you know, very outspoken conservatives to outright fascists. Um, and I think it's been creating all of these new groups, these new spaces of people who, um, want to learn about guns, want to um, learn about self-defense, learn about armed community defense, but from, in an inclusive space, from fellow leftists, fellow left-leaning people at least. Um, and yeah, uh, it's been pretty incredible to see all of these groups growing recently.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's uh, you guys fulfill a need that is really important right now. Um, and it's great that people who haven't felt included in the gun community have a place to go now. We've heard nothing but good things about John Brown gun clubs. We have one here in Connecticut. I've never met with them, but we've talked on a few different occasions, and even though we don't always agree politically, we're obviously left leaning here, but um, I think it's important to point out that even though we don't always agree 100% politically, we still think that what you guys are doing is incredibly important and support you guys 100%. So that's
Yeah,
neat.
I think we all want to show up and show our support for vulnerable people, and I think that that's super important. And you guys
Yeah,
had a really
absolutely.
high visibility event recently to that end. There was a march in Dallas, right, where you guys showed up with people protesting the Roe v. Wade decision.
Yeah, we've had a few pretty high profile um, events, actions that we've been a part of recently. Um, it grew out of our normal activism. So all of us came into this space meeting each other through activism. So we have been um, just boots on the ground, showing up for um, unhoused communities, the Black Lives Matter marches in 2020, and kind of through doing our normal stuff, we ended up uh, opposing this group of fascists who came to the gay neighborhood in Dallas, and were yelling at people, calling them groomers, and trying to push their way into a gay bar. And partially because of that, we wanted to do an armed march. Even here in Texas, you don't see armed marches very often, even though it is an open carry state. So we put that together, and that was a pretty high profile event. And the Reproductive Liberation March is actually pretty interesting because we've been helping out groups with armed security for a long time now. Um, Several of our members were at the previous one in 2021, and I guess just no one in the news ever noticed that we had rifles. But uh,
Or they just didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, figures.
yeah, it is, I think, covered up to an extent. Um, whether it be right leaning news or left leaning news, they don't really
Yeah,
want to cover
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
it kind of goes against the both of the dominant narratives, doesn't it?
yeah, absolutely. It doesn't really help either of those news organizations, so they just ignore it. But yeah, we had a lot of people come out to support the Reproductive Liberation March. Um, was that a couple weeks ago now? And people got great pictures. It kind of spread around. There were a lot of us, so we ended up kind of photo bombing a lot of stuff, I guess.
In the best
Um,
way.
but yeah, it's been pretty high profile.
How did you guys find that? I know I think I commented on one of your photos of that post, but just for people who didn't see that, because I don't think most people stalk my comment activity from the page. But what
You're
was
missing out if
the
you don't.
how was the reception from the people in that march to you showing up with rifles? Because um, typically speaking, reproductive rights is a very left wing uh, cause, but a lot of the people in and I hesitate to say a lot of the people because things are changing so rapidly, but I think most liberals would say that gun rights and reproductive rights don't mix. So to have a leftist organization carry guns to provide security at a left-wing ideological march, there would be some conflict, or some people just, it would make some people's heads explode. Like Andrew was saying, it doesn't fit the narratives of both sides. But how
I
was the
think that
reception
really
from the
a
people at that
big
event to you
part
guys
of the
showing
reception
up
is,
armed like that?
I mean, we're such a big mixture of a group, but our members have uteruses too, you know. It's not something that we're just dividing ourselves into an us versus them type of mentality. We're showing up for the community, and the community sees who we are. They've already seen us. A lot of them already know us, but it kind of incites a little bit of a thing in their mind of, hey, that's not a cop. That's not any kind of bullshit like that. That's a member of my community that's standing alongside me or standing with me. So I mean, there's obviously going to be some hesitation in people, but it was extremely well received, in my opinion. People kind of can be a little standoffish at first, but so many people already knew us. It was just like, hey, who's that? Oh, that's the John Brown Gun Club. They're fine. They're good. They're friends. And those people approach us, and that's how we can have those dialogues of,
That's
That's
awesome.
great.
this isn't a single issue. This is the autonomy of over half of us. It really
Yeah.
kind of sparks some good conversations, in my opinion.
And I think it goes a long way to showing that this issue is not it's not really necessarily, it doesn't have to be a partisan issue, right? This really, these, gun rights, self defense, and
Right.
reproductive rights are not mutually exclusive, and they're not ideologically opposed.
Well, because if you think about it, I mean, they all have to do with autonomy. Once you
Right?
divide it
Yeah.
enough times, and one you reserve the right to protect yourself and your family, and the other one you reserve your right to make medical decisions, and that is, they're both regarding autonomy, obviously to different levels, but I don't think a lot of people see that connection. And when y'all show up and march alongside people advocating for reproductive rights, I think it it almost like juxtaposes the two issues together, and people can actually have some perspective that, like Andrew said, it doesn't have to be a partisan issue. And meanwhile, everyone there is, I doubt
It's
there's some
not.
far right conservatives in the John Brown Gun Club, or I mean, maybe, I don't know. Um, Probably not. No, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to assume, but I was pretty confident. But that's really cool that you had that kind of response, and it's nice that people already knew you there. I think it goes to show you how important advocacy is, because it bridges those gaps between people who might at face value look like they have different
Yeah.
beliefs, but when they know you and they have trust in you, they know that you're there to support them. Um, that's really cool. I'm glad you guys were received like that.
So you had a good reception at these events, but do you guys, either before or during your participation in the John Brown Gun Club, do you guys ever have conflicts with the gun community because of your politics or
Oh,
your
yeah.
personal stances? Sorry, not you guys, y'all.
Uh,
We're literally going back and forth in our chat right now because we're trying to be courteous of the pronouns. And I'm like, I keep saying you guys. I keep saying you guys. Do you think that's
My
bad? And
apologies for
Andrew's like,
that.
please switch to y'all. And I'm like, fuck, okay.
I think you
I,
guys is fine. I go through the same thing. I'll accidentally use it for, um, a group of femme people or people with different pronouns. But
sure.
I think it's often generic.
I I assume it's generic, but some people don't, and I try to do whatever's most comfortable for people. But it's just funny. We're like screaming in the chat between. Well, we keep saying it. God damn it.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I appreciate that.
We're just trying to be cool, guys. We're just trying to be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
there's a lot of conflict with the gun community, because a lot of the gun community is very outspoken on um, hot button right wing issues. So, and I mean not just that, but there's pervasive racism and
Sure,
things like
yeah.
that. I'm sure you guys saw that that viral picture of a slide deck. There was some kind of firearms class going on,
Yep, we talked about that
and
with
oh my God.
ATW. Yeah. No, that
yeah,
was pretty
yeah,
that was pretty
Yeah.
fucking gnarly. Real
And
on
that
the
was
nose.
supposed. Yeah, yeah, really. And for those who don't know, it was a slide from I think it was Las Vegas, a Las Vegas gun
Let me see if I
class
can pull that
that
up.
it was essentially saying that just a lot of racist things about people of color. Things I think it had a fried chicken reference, a watermelon reference, and just I guess the context was the person teaching it was black, or some people said that, but the a large majority of the
He's
people
not
taking
he's
the
not black.
class were. What was there was somebody who was like, "Oh no, it's okay. He does this like." And not that it's okay, it's not at all. But somebody was trying to justify it, saying like,
Well,
"Oh
he's
no,
not
he's not."
white, but he's not a black guy, so it's not,
Okay,
you
well,
know.
all right. Well, either way, it's like it was not kosher, and
yeah. And so that's
that
the kind of stuff that I think drives people out of the pre-existing gun space, right? I think a lot of people think of leftists as being very sensitive, reacting out of being offended. But I think the truth is more that leftists tend to be marginalized people, right? So if you are a
yeah.
black person, or if you have friends or family that are black people, and you see something like that, you're gonna walk out of there. Fuck that. Um,
Yeah, so it says always shoot the gun right side up. Always lick the chicken grease off of your fingers. Trigger warning, guys, this is racism. Always make sure there's a white person around so you can have someone to blame for everything that goes wrong in your life. Always aim for small children to ensure you actually hit another gang
Fucking
member.
horrible.
That is the slide.
Gee, that's like
I
worse
know
than I thought.
it's
I
really
remember it being.
bad.
But like you're saying, there's tons of that in the typical gun community, and people are looking to leave that. People are looking to find something different.
yeah, for sure. So I mean, things like that will cause people to um, flee those spaces all the time. Uh, and yeah, it's hard to get along with what the pre-existing gun community, or what the gun community has been. And I mean that's on the one hand is um, things like racism, things like just being very outspoken about right wing politics in a way that is uh, legitimately threatening to a lot of people. If you, it's not just a political disagreement. If you're saying like
No.
you know women should stay in the kitchen or something like that, that's a statement about like someone trying to control your life, and your opportunities and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
Um, but even outside that, a lot of the ways that we might run into a conservative member of the gun community, someone who's active on AR15.com or something like that, will actually be in the street. They're carrying a rifle. They're glaring at us because we're like near their Confederate statue or something.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
those
And then
precious statues.
it's an institution.
I really hope I
Um,
piss some people off when I say that Confederate statues should all be torn down.
well, we have 0 statues commemorating wars that. Oh, never mind. I shouldn't say that. I was gonna say wars we lost in. We have tons of
Oh
Vietnam
yeah.
War memorials. um, well, it wasn't a. All right, maybe it is a participation trophy, but whatever. I'm trying to be kind here, but no, you're right. And I think it's I pointed this out a lot when the George Floyd demonstrations were going on, that it was interesting to see the difference in reaction from police when they encountered a group of protesters who were armed versus when they weren't. And I think the same thing goes for
big time.
these protesters and counter protesters on the right who show up armed and encounter leftists who are also armed. It's almost like they get deflated and they're no longer interested in picking a fight with anybody, and that's kind of the point of firearms, really. So it's really neat. I think it's really neat that we finally have that representation for our causes, for our things that typically for the most part have just been populated with signs and pink hats and stuff like that. So
no offense to pink hats and
there's
Jordan sells his own pink hats. We both have one.
I mean, it's a hat also. You roll it up.
It's just got another use.
Yeah, it has plenty of uses.
I think you have a good point about both sides being armed, because no one wants to pick a fight if they think they might lose. And if you look at history, and you look at genocides, and I hate to bring this up, I hate to doomer post, but a lot of people on the left are concerned about the possibility of genocides, of like entire marginalized groups being targeted by violence.
Oh, it's not just the left.
If you look at,
I'm a libertarian, and I'm worried about that too. The fundamentalist conservatives really have me freaked out in this country.
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate that, because I think people are freaked out for good reason. But if you look at history, most genocides happen when one group is relatively disarmed. Their military power is low, and it's difficult for them to fight back against that genocide. If a marginalized group has the power to stand up against that, it's like, oh, hang on a minute, let's talk about this.
Reevaluate. Yeah, exactly.
And these everybody. So, everybody jokes about us with our rifles standing up against the government with like tanks and planes or whatever. But historically, it's not always the regular military or police of a country that carry out genocides. A lot of the times, if somebody's coming, if somebody's coming for you and your people to round them up or wipe them out, it's going to be like a private group that's sort of tacitly sanctioned by the state, right? It's not always the people with bombers and tanks and eye in the sky, and so it becomes a lot more reasonable from that historical perspective to fight back against these groups of people with just conventional weapons that are available to civilians.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I think people who bring up points like that are not really dealing with reality, just because of the different ways that things play out in the real world, like low intensity conflicts and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I think, what I know we're getting a little off topic here, but that's something that I think people fail. No, never. I think people fail to realize is that we all talk about, because at the end of the day, whether you believe that our rights come from a piece of paper or are innately ours, we are protecting ourselves to maintain our rights, and whether those rights are being taken away by the government or a group of people who don't see us as equal, it's for the same purpose. And guns are an equalizer. They always have been. They always will be. I mean, and you don't even have to have the same kind of firepower as the person who's against you. Look at what just happened in Indiana.
Yeah, the mall shooting.
Yeah. Dude had did we find out what kind of gun it was yet, or do we still
I'm reading
not know?
Glock. which
Glock. I keep seeing Hellcat memes.
it doesn't. I mean, it's same difference, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
a
well, the guy
probably a
had a
compact
good,
polymer striker fired.
yeah, Good Samaritan who wasn't permitted, but because they just passed their permitless carry law, was legally armed. Dropped the dude with an AR from 40 yards away. 8 out of 10 shots hit the guy.
Dude, I'm
And
reading that the updated timeline is that he engaged him like 15 seconds after he started shooting.
yes,
And this
yeah,
is just
which
a
is
regular dude.
insane.
This is just a dude with practice.
Just a guy. I mean, his name is Elijah with like 12 letters. And
We don't need to make fun of
every
his
time
name.
I spell it, I fuck it up. But I mean,
Just call
dude's
him
a
Eli.
fucking diesel. Like, good on him. But anyway, what I'm saying is that, I mean, that is typically what these wars, how these wars are fought now. You know, you look at what's happening in Myanmar. You look at what's going on down in Africa. What has happened in our own history. You know, in the Middle East, in Vietnam. It's not military against military. It's people with rifles against a larger and more technologically superior force, and they do a pretty good job of keeping them at bay. And you could have a pistol and fuck somebody up with an AR. You could have a bunch of people in their backyards with rifles and fuck up a sophisticated military. It's totally possible, and it's happened before.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like if a dog is chasing you, you, typically you're, at least for me, I'm not afraid the dog is gonna kill me, but
Yeah,
it's gonna
but you don't
hurt
want to
if it
get bit.
bites me. Yeah, you don't want to mess with it.
So nobody wants to fist fight a dog, right?
Yeah,
No, so
No.
it's not about, it could very well be that the Christian fundamentalist Christo-fascist militia believes that they can take all of the trans people in Texas and put them in their death camps, and they might believe that they have the numbers to do it, but it might cost them more than they're willing to spend on that, and that calculation is really important. It's not being untouchable and undefeatable. It's increasing the cost of the aggression of the other side.
Yeah.
yeah, and maintaining that uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So I forget that a lot of people listen to this. I almost say things sometimes that I'm like, that would get
Say
me
it.
a knock
Just
on my
say
door.
it.
I was gonna say that's why it's important to fly a drone with a grenade over their house every now and then. Keep that. It doesn't. Not a real grenade. Not a real grenade.
For
That would be
Yeah,
illegal.
yeah. Like one of the dummy grenades that a Better Way 2A sells on a betterway2a.com.
Exactly like that. Just increase uncertainty. Anyway, FBI agent, I'm not fake grenades.
One of these days, it's going to be a real one.
Not that I'm supporting at all, or anyone from a Better Way 2A. So how did you guys get started with your chapter of the John Brown Gun Club? What made you guys
I mean,
feel
we
like there
really
needed to be one in your
kind
area,
of,
and what did you do to start
like
one up?
Bubble was saying earlier, we just kind of fell together. It wasn't necessarily a sit down and talk this out, figure this out kind of thing. It was more like you see the same people over and over and over, uh, regardless of what the space is, protest or a homeless camp or whatever. You start to develop a trust with the people, and um, especially when you're in high intensity situations like that, you can figure out who you trust pretty quick. And I think a lot of us have just felt a little bit of distrust in the rest of the world, that it's good to find that group together and be able to build one another up and teach each other and make ourselves better in the process.
That's cool.
And you'll definitely look
That's
cool while you're doing it.
yeah, for sure. Um, Speaking of looking cool, one of our one of our listener questions that was sent in was
A heat
who are you
casualty
all
that
wearing
they
black
know
in the
of.
Texas heat without a heat casualty? um, y-
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah, they hide their
exactly.
casualties so as not to expose their weaknesses.
uh,
Smart.
um, yes,
No,
exactly.
it's been tough. We're in over 100-degree heat a lot of the time out here, and um,
Dude,
I
this
think
heat
part
wave
of it goes to
sucks.
acclimation. Yeah. Uh, we're pretty used to being outside. We do a number of activities outside, like helping camps and uh, training outside, um, and then electrolytes and water. Just a ton of
Oh yeah.
electrolytes and water.
Can't forget the salt, man.
Yeah, it's kind of fun because I feel like we figured out uh, all of the best electrolytes, and we use different mixes. But we've got your Pedialyte, your Liquid IV,
Oh, that stuff is so good.
Salt Stick. But yeah, just take all of it.
Do you get the Liquid
Consume
IV
lots of.
from Costco?
Sometimes, yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
deal
that's where I
that
get
they
it.
have over there.
I don't live close enough to. I live like 40 minutes away from a Costco, but it is one of those things that's always just been slightly out of grasp. That
What,
is
Costco?
just Costco. Yeah, it's just beyond like the realm of convenience.
The
And what are you looking
transaction
at? Like
cost is
40
just too
minutes is
high.
like 40. You know what it is? It's like the supermarket that we is near us is literally 5 minutes down the road. So 40 minutes to go
Yeah, but they don't
somewhere.
have Liquid IV.
Oh, I know, and they don't have
Be
$1.50
like
hot dogs.
JBGC. Get
We
your
are
Liquid
lucky;
IV.
we have like 10 of them
For
over
sure.
here.
That's awesome. You're
No,
blessed.
man, and
Truly, truly
I've been a
blessed.
Texan since I was born here. I've lived in Texas and Arizona, and I got to tell you, man, this heat, acclimatization is one thing, but this heat at this time of year is it's pretty wild. It's a
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
it's a major
Um,
operational concern, I'm sure.
yeah, we do have to just look after each other, um, because you can find yourself just suddenly struggling with the heat, under black clothes and the weight of your gear and everything.
And do you guys need to wear like all black, or is that a stylistic choice, or is it like like PID, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's a mix of both. Um, you know, there's a reason that people wear black. It's an easy way to look uniform, to conceal your identity, protect yourself from doxing and things like that. Um, but it's also become a symbol, and it's pretty interesting. Given what the mainstream narrative about Antifa is. Um, when people see us in all black clothes, they recognize, hey, that's Antifa. But at least around here, that's associated with like those people are security. Those people like carry water and electrolytes. If you have questions about like what time we're starting to march, you can go ask them. It's like those people are here to help. Um, and so that's been a useful part of it too, that people don't have to directly recognize us. They can just be like, oh, we've seen those people before, like they're cool.
That's awesome that people connect that to those kind of thoughts, and that you guys are like a trusted source of information, and there for the right reasons. Um, I think a lot of the media narrative does a lot to derail that sort of uh, notion that Antifa is there for good reasons, and there's tons of video that people love to I say tons of video. There are a few videos that people love to circulate a ton of times to kind of like it's like they go to www.imright.com, and that's the video they
Well,
pull up
and I think the other thing
that
too
you know
is talking about Antifa like it's some sort of
Yeah.
a monolithic organization as opposed to just sort of like a way of being, you know? Like I mean it's like you
well,
guys
yeah,
are
and
saying
that's
like
a
even John Brown Gun Club isn't it's not like a national organization. It's just like a here's a set of loose ideals, and we can take this name to sort of show what we're about, right? I'm sure that there's Antifa guys out there that are just in it to smash property or whatever, but that doesn't mean that like I mean, that shouldn't
That's
discredit.
not Antifa though. That's
Right, right.
Yeah, exactly. That's no different than making a judgment about a whole group of people based on
Yeah,
individual
right,
experiences with
exactly. That's what I'm
that
getting
group,
at.
one person in that group. Yeah, it's it's
And it's not
it's
worth
just as
saying.
ignorant as being a
Well,
racist
it's like you could pin down somebody who identifies themselves as Antifa and be like, why don't you explain this behavior of this other Antifa person? And it doesn't make any sense because they don't have anything to do with each other.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, anyone wearing black bloc is going to get tagged as being Antifa. And, we're not necessarily opposed to property damage. If it's like, keep this Starbucks out of my neighborhood, I don't find that objectionable. Sometimes people will do things I don't agree with, and certainly um, people who I don't think should have been targeted may have gotten targeted. But I have no idea who those people that did that is. At the end of the day, it's just people wearing black clothes.
Yeah.
exactly. You're not accountable for every single person who dresses like you, and like no person is for any member of their group unless unless you're in the military or something like that. Which even that is that's loosely loose accountability. But
Yeah, as we
yeah,
found.
it's yeah, exactly. But you guys came together. You said just loosely with just being in the same places at the same time, multiple times, and sharing similar interests. What could somebody who wants to join a John Brown Gun Club do to find one? What is involved with joining your club, your John Brown Gun Club? And do you do any kind of vetting process? Are there like, I know you said it's not a formal organization, obviously, but do you have to go to like range cleanup days? How does that work? How do you get
Well,
people?
honestly, a lot
How
of
do you get
the
new members? How do
people
people
that are
find you?
interested are
And what's that
typically
process
going to
like?
feed that interest off of an experience that they have. Uh, a lot of times that's just meeting us. Um, I honestly think if someone is wanting to get involved or get organized, the most important thing to do is to just show up. Uh, I know sometimes people can feel a little alone, but there's always something going on somewhere, whether you're directly affected or your neighbor is affected, or your whole block is affected. It's just a matter of touching grass and figuring out what the need is in the community and figuring out how to achieve it. Obviously, Gun Club is the name, but it's about community building so much more than just guns. Guns are just a tool. Right. And the John Brown.
Emphasis on the club, not the gun.
But yeah, I mean, anyone coming
Yes, of
into our
course.
Of
Always
space
the
is
course.
John
going to
Brown.
Yeah,
be,
absolutely.
uh, we're just going to make sure that we're safe. And just because someone is interested doesn't mean that this is necessarily the space for them. Obviously, there can be ideological differences or accessibility differences or any number of things, but it's not just us verifying someone, it's them verifying that we stand for what they want to stand for too, because we all have to be united in a cause, otherwise what's the point?
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And so as far as ideological differences go, is there, and this probably goes differently for every John Brown gun club, but we have you guys here, and that's why I'm asking this question. What are your limits for ideological differences? Like, what kind of disagreements would you allow,
Well, really, I
and
mean,
what's an
I think
absolute red flag or no go
the
for
only
somebody
few
to
hard
hang out?
lines are if someone has decided to become more of an enemy of their community and become a cop. We don't organize with cops, or we don't even typically work alongside groups that organize with cops because they're the plague of the community. They don't do anything to improve it. Um, and really anything else that, no racist, no bigots, no homophobes, no transphobes, anyone that is going to make a member of the community feel unsafe in any capacity is probably just not the right person for that. Um, those aren't absolutes because people obviously change, but those hard lines are absolute. Anytime that something like that happens, that's going to be someone that isn't safe to be around. I wouldn't limit it to the binary of ideology because even that is a very fluid
Yeah.
concept, but it's more about how someone interacts with their community and whether they choose to be united with it or against it.
That's great. I really like that. That obviously, yeah, nobody wants to hang out with any kind of phobe or racists or people that make people unsafe. But that's um, I think it's really neat that you guys have, and obviously you're not going to find any of that here, but that you don't have hard lines for things that can change because I'm sure we all know somebody who thinks differently now than they did 5 years ago, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they were a bad person. Then it just means that they weren't exposed to the right information or the information that was required to show them a bit of perspective. So that's cool that y'all are open to that.
Well, I think that's
Yeah, as long as they're just not a shithead in
yeah.
general.
I think that's really fitting because your namesake John Brown himself was a bit of a, I want to say, like an enigma, or really just that he sort of defied classification in his time, but also now it's kind of difficult to pin down exactly what he was, either in the lens of the politics of his time or contemporary politics. Obviously, a lot of leftists and specifically a lot of socialists like to sort of model their iconography after him.
I
But
mean,
what about him specifically appeals to you guys in this context?
Besides being a badass.
Besides being a fucking slaveholder,
even for
murdering,
the in the
just
vacuum of
wonderful
time
human
when he
being.
existed, his way of doing things was a little unorthodox. And not just in the lens of the most popular events that everybody harkens back to, uh, but even just the his modus of operation.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of history about him is kind of either lost or untold, and he was really one of the first in the counter revolution time, 1776 to Reconstruction. He's really one of the first to actually ally with the people that he was fighting for, right? Um, so there's still a lot to be said about the white saviorism,
Yeah, that's
and
definitely true.
especially in the way that he's portrayed by predominantly white scholars and historians. But there's a lot that gets discounted, like his training from the Haitians and learning from the Haitians after the Haitian Revolution, that really drove a lot of what that ideology was in him.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it says a lot too that the kind of the government that he wanted to create, he envisioned it as a like a primarily his sort of revolutionary government, right? His provisional
right,
government. He
exactly.
envisioned it as a black government, not
And
as
just
a
that
bunch of white people
recognition
taking care of black people.
of doubting the infallibility of the state, uh, especially in as young of terms as it was, that's a huge thing to make that recognition of something that people are so obsessed with the portrayed betterment of, doubting that in a way that can actually enact demonstrable change. there was obviously a lot of abolitionists at the time that did make a huge impact, but the ones in the state houses didn't. It was the people actually putting words to action that did. And that's that's kind of why the namesake is so important, because
Yeah, hell
that
yeah.
abolition and that consideration of the doubt, that's the crux of everything.
Man, that's a killer answer.
Hey everyone, this is an ad for our Patreon, so if you don't feel like listening to it, feel free to fast forward about a minute. But if you like what we do and want to support us, then listen in. Don't you wish every commercial came with that little blurb? So if you're new to the neighborhood, Patreon is a website that allows us to funnel our desire to make this podcast into a shameless cash grab. Kidding. But really, it's just a way for you guys to show us that you support us, that you like what we're doing, you like what we're about, you want us to do more, expand, do bigger and better things like take over Tesla and SpaceX and kidnap Elon Musk. Whatever. The details don't matter. But in return for your support, we have multiple tiers available with some sweet perks ranging from stickers to discount codes to shirts and a lot of other things that are exclusive only to our Patreon. Your contributions will help us offset some of the costs of running this podcast, as well as keeping me fully stocked with spiked coffee beverages for those late night recording sessions and fueling Andrew's unhealthy thirst for revenge against Whoopi's shoes. He's building a mech robot in his garage. It's a little weird. I think he's planning to do something strange with it. But anyway, if any of this tickles your fancy, then please go to the link in our Instagram bio or patreon.com/abetterway2a to check it out. Or don't, but it would be cooler if you did. Anyway, back to the show. Enjoy. Yeah, that sums that up pretty well. I think there are what was I going to say? Or how do I say this? There are like you said, the white saviorism is still a thing. That it's almost like NIMBYism now. You know that people have this outward persona that they want to do good, but
It's always kind of paired with that
don't.
racism of low expectations, right? That the vulnerable people cannot and will not take care of themselves, and so it is incumbent upon the white liberal.
Yeah, to do so for them. I
Right.
think it is very very on the nose of what I think John Brown would think it was awesome that there are gun clubs. Or I mean, I even I hesitate to even call you guys a gun club outside of saying your name in full now because of what everything that you do. But I think he'd be very proud that there are groups like y'all out there doing the stuff that he left off with.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think it's important that people listen to the marginalized people. Um, it's it's good to want to help people, but making up in your own mind like what those people need or how to help them is the problem. Actually go to the communities and say like, how can I help you? These are my skills. Like, you know, kind of tell me what you need.
Yeah, and like just take your ego out of it, right? Like, if you
Yeah.
don't get an answer that you like, just, okay.
Did you guys see the video of AOC pretending to get arrested
man.
while marching down the street?
Yeah, unfortunately.
And the
Getting a
God, if we could just go on a tangent, AOC is such a disappointment for me because I actually really liked her and the squad.
so
This
did
may
I.
surprise
Well, I
you
liked
back
her.
in
I
the
didn't know
day.
much about.
So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
uh, this kind of gets into the capitalism thing and material interest because we've talked about this a lot. I think a lot of us had high hopes for AOC. Was excited by what it seemed like she was trying to do. But once you start attending these parties with all of these establishment people, all of these masters of the universe, that's going to inherently like change your attitudes, change who you are as a person, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then how do you still appeal to your constituents if you're not voluntarily putting your arms behind your back, looking like you're handcuffed while getting escorted out of a protest by a very friendly and not forceful police officer.
Yeah, I think that's why we emphasize community so much. It's important that um, if you're a part of a community, you stay physically around near that community so that there's, it's not like, oh, it's election season. I'm going to visit for a couple days.
Right.
It's like, I
You
know
have to
what's
be in
going on.
touch.
I know your car broke down. I know what's going on in your life.
The
Um,
people from Washington are concerned about the people in Washington. They're concerned about their colleagues and they're concerned about their work shit. They're not concerned about the day to day of their communities.
yeah, always.
So you guys, I don't know how deep you want to get into your economic politics, but you mentioned this gets into the capitalism thing, right? Um, is that an important part of the John Brown Gun Club too, or is that something where it's sort of like up to the members sort of like personal politics, or rather, let me rephrase that. Is that one of the things that you guys have tolerance and like flexibility for sort of like different views on economic systems?
I think in the group we have a lot of different ideas for um, economic systems. Um, there's a lot of uh, eco-anarchist thought that is very different from like a more modernist anarchist thought, I guess. Um, but I would say for the most part, everyone is at least skeptical of capitalism.
Sure,
And
sure.
even though a lot of us came through libertarianism or had a libertarian phase, but it's hard not to be skeptical,
Yeah,
in this world with who's benefiting, how things are distributed, um, and all of the historical ways that you know that wealth inequality happened because
yeah.
it's a compounding of things over time.
Well, and I think that's really interesting that a lot of people who sort of like publicly identify with John Brown have similar answers to that. And I think that's really interesting when you get into John Brown's own relationship with capitalism and the way that he always kind of struggled to he wasn't very successful in business. He was always trying, but I think that he couldn't quite interface with the way that business was done in his time because I think that he had a different idea about like what the role of like people should be in the economy. I think that he always I think that he was more concerned with being productive and helpful than generating value. You know what I mean? And it's a weird
Yeah.
distinction to make, but
No, I really think it is a challenge to um, fully respect and value people and also to prosper under capitalism because um, you need to get profits out of people. And even if you are treating an employee nicely and you're paying them well relative to the market or what have you, at the end of the day, you have to make more money off of them than they are generating. Otherwise, you're going to go out of business. Um, and I think that can be uh, extrapolated to you know John Brown and similar figures really not struggling to keep businesses afloat. It's a very different way of
yeah,
thinking.
for sure. And I don't know that he would have called himself anti-capitalist, but I think a lot of the things that he said probably went on to inform what became the anti-capitalist and the socialist movements later, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and a pretty interesting discussion that has been entering our ideological conversations recently is whether what is the place of slavery in capitalism because the
Yeah.
old model was slavery is an like an ancient world kind of thing, and capitalism advanced us past this. But the current situation in the US with so many people in prisons, and those people in prisons generating so much money by producing
Yeah.
products from Nike, IBM, all kinds of stuff.
You kind of get the sense that maybe John Brown wouldn't like that.
Yeah, he would have had some things to say about that. But it's brought back into the conversation that it's like, hey, if the goal here is to get the most money out of your workers, you can't get more money out of someone than if they are enslaved, especially when it's allied to a government system, because these companies don't even feed the prisoners. They're not
Yeah.
even the prisons are paying for um, for keeping their prisoners alive, and then the companies come in and they can get labor at 6 cents an hour or what have you.
Yeah, totally agree.
Which is absolutely insane that that's even possible in our country. We hold ourselves, or some people hold ourselves in such high
Yeah, some of
regard.
us do.
And compare. Well, yeah, I say some. Um, compare ourselves to countries like China that we know for a fact have child labor and uh, like slave wages, but then we completely discount the fact that we have our own pretty much slavery here in our prison system.
Yeah, and are so dependent on it. Like the firefighters in
Yeah,
California, they're saving cities, they're
yeah,
saving lives, and they're making basically nothing. They're close to being slaves.
Yeah, that's criminal, I think. I don't want to
yeah. The wildland firefighters, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. No, I
Sorry.
just want to say I don't want to misrepresent myself. I am a literal actual capitalist. But I mean, it's like you said. I think everybody in their right mind is at least a little skeptical of what's going on here in America, right?
Well, and I think if you engage in capitalism, it's kind of hard not to call yourself. At least it's a spectrum, you know.
Yes,
Um,
I'm on the capitalist
like,
spectrum.
yeah. Like I think about this, and I have conflicts every now and then when I start to think about this. Running a business. A better way to at the end of the day is a business, and the object of it, the business side, not necessarily the advocacy stuff, is to make money. I mean, if I break even or lose money, then it's not successful. But at the same time, it's like I have to look at uh, when we get a new product, it's like, well, what can I reasonably charge for this? Like, what would I want to pay for something like this where I wouldn't feel like I was getting ripped off? And I don't want nobody wants to take advantage of people, even though there's tons of people who obviously do it in the gear market and things like that. And it's sometimes it's uncomfortable when you think, okay, um, I don't know, like what's the margin we need to make to keep up with credit card interest, or like,
Yeah,
or
right.
pay off this credit card,
Well, and especially because
that
for you, part of your end goal is having enough is having enough money to donate to these like mutual aid organizations and other things. And
yeah,
so it's like you've
it's nice
got
to have extra cash in the bank to
yeah,
do that.
you've got to have some business
But
acumen to be able to get to the point where you can support your operations and support these causes that is ostensibly like the reason that this brand exists, right?
yeah, absolutely. And our I say our, it's I've talked to my wife about this, but the end goal, and not to say end goal because there's no end to this, but I would love to get
No
to a
end.
point where I could sponsor people in low income areas to get their pistol permit in places that are financially inaccessible to do so, because it's still, even if you live in a state where you don't have to, and not even just a permit, but to be and if there are any lawyers out there, please who feel like answering this question for free, um, sponsoring somebody to buy their first gun. That would be awesome. That being
You
able to
can give
buy
somebody
somebody's first firearm.
money, and
Yeah,
they
and,
buy
and then
their
they
own
go
gun
through
with
all
it. Yeah.
the paperwork and stuff, and that would be that would be amazing for us to get to that point. And unfortunately, you know, we to get to that point though, we have to charge people an X amount of dollars over what we bought something for to have that extra money in the bank to do so. I mean,
Yeah, so I mean, we get that people have to survive under capitalism, and we have worked with, um, business owners before. Usually, if they're having like a venue that's being threatened by some kind of fascist action or something like that, um, I think I think what unites us is this belief that everyone in the community has to be taken care of. Um, and what we've found is that uh, you can just start doing it. So a lot of us are working class people. We don't have a lot of money to spare, but um, by pooling all of our connections
Yeah.
and all of our time, we can get pallets of bottled water and food from different sources, and just start going. And we know of a lot of people that have been gifted guns. You just you scrimp and save and make things happen.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Yeah, and for all of Texas's shortcomings, I am super glad that we finally got a constitutional carry through, and that at least in that aspect, our laws have been greatly liberalized. Although, it's a little frustrating that even with open carry and constitutional carry, police are still able to. I forget the exact wording, but it's like having a gun on you is still in Texas cause for acceptable cause, I guess, for like a police officer to like stop you and question you.
Yeah, that's why we travel
really,
in groups.
Yeah,
Almost anything can be probable cause, but there are things you can do to affect whether it will be used
yeah.
as
Whether they
probable
press
cause.
the issue, right?
yeah,
But yeah, no, we're very grateful for constitutional carry. I think I can't speak for everyone, but um, I mean we're not big fans of the constitutional part. We
Right.
believe
The
in.
the term
yeah,
constitutional
yeah.
carry, sort of a term of art, but I suspect
Yeah,
we
yeah,
probably feel similarly about the Constitution itself, and but
It's your right to protect yourself. Not
doesn't
it's
come
not
from a
given
piece
to
of
you by a
paper.
piece of paper written by a bunch of dead people.
right, exactly. But it does give us a lot of options, and I think um, it can save lives, like we saw in the mall shooting. That guy was actually in a gun-free zone, but thank
Yeah.
God he did not pay attention to that.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, carry everywhere, man.
That's one of the the conflicts that I see with a lot of new shooters who come into the sphere of realizing all these places that they can't carry or that they're not supposed to, but in the same universe where these mass shootings keep happening in the areas they're told not to carry.
I think we really got to
That
stop. We got to stop framing the good owners, the good gun owners, as law-abiding gun owners, right? So you always hear that all the
I
time,
agree
right?
100%.
Law-abiding gun owners. Maybe
Yeah,
we don't need to
law-abiding
abide
gun
all
owners.
laws.
I like the term responsible gun owners.
Yeah, I love
because I
that.
don't think responsible has anything to do with law. Civil disobedience. There's absolutely nothing wrong with civil disobedience when done right. And I think if you're going to disobey a sign on the wall and it ends up saving countless lives because you chose to carry in a place that was labeled otherwise, um, I don't know who's going to fault you for that. I mean, I do know who's going to fault you for that. There are plenty of people faulting
Yeah.
Elijah for that who say that he should be prosecuted for doing so. But um, I think that has to be whatever you're comfortable with, whatever somebody's comfortable with. But I absolutely think that you should carry everywhere. Everywhere there isn't a metal detector, and you're going to embarrass yourself
Yeah.
when you try to carry there. But
Yeah, I think it really highlights the hypocrisy or the failure of the law because you know, pretty much anywhere in the U.S. you can carry if you're a police officer. Um,
Yeah, it's bullshit.
yeah, and yet police officers never stop mass shootings. It's always some random guy. It was a black woman in Charleston, West Virginia earlier this year. It was Johnny Hurley in Colorado
Oh, it's
earlier this
tragic.
year. Yeah,
The woman in South Carolina who stopped the guy circling the parking lot who came back to shoot up the party.
yeah. She stopped a mass shooter with her purse
Fucking
gun.
champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
that story about Hurley, we
But
were
these
just talking to
events,
somebody about that in a
yeah.
previous episode, and it's just like, man, it just like haunts you thinking about stuff like that.
Well, because I feel like that's every gun owner's worst fear, really. I think
Oh, I know.
the Rambo-esque fantasy that some gun owners have is that they're going to be the good guy with the gun one day. That they're going to be the savior and save lives. Not everybody thinks that, obviously, but I think the thought goes through all new gun owners' minds that they might have to do that one day. And can you imagine, at the highest peak of your life, having just stopped somebody from committing a mass shooting and just getting taken out by the people who are supposed to be there to protect the people in the first place?
yeah, it was no, truly horrible. And America is so full of tragedies that we don't even dwell on cases like that. We don't give them the time and thought that they deserve.
Agreed.
But I remember.
What? Yeah, well, and that's why it's important to, everyone. I keep thinking of Fight Club references. His name was Robert Paulson. But seriously, we have to say people's names. Say people's names. Keep them in people's the forefront of people's memories. I hate that I have to keep adding anniversaries of posts I'm going to have to make in a year.
Oh man, somebody, one of my friends,
memorializing people who died for shitty reasons.
yeah, one of my friends was like, "I'm so mad right now," and my immediate response was, "Oh, about what?" And then I realized what a shitty situation it is that it's like there's so many national fucking outrages all the time that I'm like, which one? Which one are you talking about?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I saw a Twitter thread earlier today that is the kind of thing that you'll see a lot, but it was about arming school teachers, and it was like if 400 cops with training and guns can't stop a school shooter, what is the point of arming school teachers? And I want to caveat this by saying school teachers should not have to be armed. Um,
Yeah,
all of this, you know, thinking about how we can defend our communities, um, it's not a solution to the violence. The violence should not be happening.
right,
But
right.
that aside, I did think back to some research I saw that showed, on the one hand, cops basically never stop a school mass shooting, but on the other hand, teachers do often. They're usually unarmed. Um,
Like that
it's
one
like,
of the teacher who bear hugged the student with a shotgun.
yeah, it happens like over 20 times a year.
Oh yeah,
Um, a teacher will intervene and stop a mass shooting. So it's like, well, the teachers are brave and want to protect the kids. The cops are not. That's the flaw with your logic there.
one, and it's always also telling the way they
Yeah.
phrase it. They're like arming teachers, where it's like I think maybe some people are talking about that, but and this is another thing I think we talked with Rogue Rescue about was like, maybe
Yeah.
reframe it a little bit. Maybe don't talk about arming teachers, but allowing teachers to carry guns that they're already allowed to carry elsewhere. Not all of them will
Right.
do it, but not all of them
essentially
have to do it for it to be effective.
Yeah.
No, not even. I'm sure some of them don't want to. I have a
Yeah,
friend of mine
absolutely.
who's a teacher who has her pistol permit and has no interest in doing it, and that's fine. But I think removing a school as a gun-free zone, like we were saying, people deciding where to carry illegally, and not all places where it's posted is illegal by the law. Sometimes it's because it's private property and it's posted. It's I know in Connecticut it is illegal. It's a Class E felony, but some states you kind of get escorted out and you might get a ticket. But Um, I think just removing the gun free zone, um, in quotes, from schools will get rid of, because I hate to say it, but I would be very surprised if there wasn't a single teacher in the United States who had a gun on their person or nearby, um, at the behest of their school policies. Because I think about this whenever I go to a concert, whenever I go to a like a large populated gathering. How could I not carry right now? And I'm sure teachers, some of them who are armed, have the same thoughts. How could I not be carrying right now to protect myself and my students? It's absolutely crazy to expect somebody not to want to do that. But
Yeah, that's a good point. That it is removing the criminalization of people, if they want to carry in those areas. Um,
exactly.
yeah, I think a teacher should be able to carry anywhere a cop can.
Yeah. How do you manage solidarity with groups that have similar values as yours? Are any of them firearms organizations? And if so, how do you encourage solidarity with groups that share similar values as yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, we always try to let people know if we're going to come to their thing. We don't just show up with guns, because that could be an issue. We work with a lot of different groups. I would say relatively few of them are firearms groups. Um, we're always trying to make the community stronger in the different ways that looks like. So, like during the winter storm, we came together with a bunch of different groups just because everybody needed water, everybody needed heaters. Um, so yeah, I mean, in most places, I think there's kind of an activist scene. The people who help out at homeless camps are the same people who do um, like bail funds, are the same people who do all kinds of stuff. So we have cultivated relationships over a long period of time, um, and so we can just directly talk to most people. And if they need help with an event, whether that's in our capacity of carrying firearms or not, they know they can reach out to us, and we will come support them.
Neat. That's cool. And you do that based on previous working relationships with them. You're not. Uh, I don't see you guys going and like marketing yourselves to groups. It sounds to me like groups come to you and ask you for either help or it's kind of happenstance that you'll bump into each other.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Especially I think these days, due to the higher profile, our name will come up in conversations a lot. Like, who do we want to invite? Who can help us with sound systems? Who can help us with security? Oh, John Brown Gun Club.
Wait,
That's
let
cool,
me
and it's
clarify.
something.
Were you when you said who can help us with sound systems? Was that meant to be another example of like things that some people might be like asking about, or are you saying that you guys also do sound systems?
um, that would be an example of something you would ask other people for.
Okay, okay, just
Uh,
just for
We are your security and your
yeah,
DJs tonight.
just because that's an interesting crossover there if that was the case, but I understand what you mean now.
yeah, it was just because things like sound equipment or generators or things like that are pretty expensive. So, uh, like I was talking about earlier with just finding resources, like, if you want to have a thing where there are speakers, um, you probably don't have the money to go out and buy a stage and a sound system, but a guy who knows a guy that has sound equipment, and then you're like, hey, we're doing a rally or whatever. Can you bring your sound stuff?
Yeah, and I think it's cool to. I think it's awesome that people have an option to keep security within the community also, because I think that often gets overlooked. That not only do a lot of these demonstrations not have security, but if people have an interest in getting security, it's nice to have people there providing it who have a stake in the argument also, instead of just names and numbers of people who are getting paid by the hour and don't really have the emotional attachment to the issues. So I think that's awesome that you're able to provide something like that, because trust is everything, and knowing that the people aren't being motivated by a paycheck, but instead true motivation to the cause is something that I don't think you get a lot of with things like security. You don't ever see the guys guarding the stages at concerts jumping on stage and doing crazy stuff to, I don't know, that was probably a bad example, but it's nice that you know everybody, and I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. It's really important to us that we keep focused on community safety first. So, we're not cops. We're not going to arrest anybody for being drunk or anything like that. We're not private security. We're not there to protect
That's a good point.
the equipment and to protect just the organizers. I've seen videos of security guards, just stand there while somebody gets stabbed or something like that. That's never going to be us. We are there to keep people safe first and foremost. There is no like contract that says we have to focus on these people or this property.
So how would you tell somebody who was interested in doing what you do, but lives in a state where open carry is not permissible? You were talking earlier about black bloc and being able to be identified, obviously, so people know who you're with and what you're there for. But do you have any tips for people who live in a state where it might not be apparent that they are there providing security, but they want to provide security and want people to know that they are there for that reason?
Yeah, I saw that as one of the questions, and I thought that was a really good question because it's difficult. Our ability to carry long guns gives us a lot of options, um, and if you don't have those options legally, uh, it's a challenge. I mean, I would say the first thing is you need to get to know the community. You need to meet the organizers. You can't just show up and be like, "Hey, I'm here to protect you." You have to have relationships with
Trust me.
people. Yeah, trust me, I'm here to help. Um, but other than not following your local laws, which is not something I can recommend, um, there's other options. So one thing in Dallas that has been very helpful is using a giant flag. It was a American flag in black and white, and it was the size of a city block. Like it was like 30 feet by 60. Um,
Wow. Oh, so actually.
yeah, actually giant. Uh, and the benefit of that, not it makes a big political statement, but aside from that, it is impossible to run us over through. Like it's the size of a city block. It will just swallow up your car. Um, and so we never had problems with angry drivers or anything like that. That's often a problem we'll have. I mean, we don't like occupy intersections for hours and hours. Um, but even if it's like 5 minutes, someone
Yeah.
will start yelling or
There's
something.
always one.
Yeah, it's because you want
Um,
to get your people through the intersection without getting run over.
yeah, the intersections are a big danger area. But the big flag, it just kind of shut that thing down completely passively. You know, um, completely, I guess, like passive intimidation. Like you can't do anything. It's like trying to drive through a building. So I think alternative methods like that, and actually I think that's a better option if you can make it. You got to actually sew together the giant flag. But if you can do that, that is actually safer than anti-material rifles or something like that. Because it takes away the option. You literally cannot run us over. So I think strategies like that, alongside concealed carry if that's allowed, or whatever else you want to do, Um, Definitely don't be afraid to start up that group, start making connections with people, even if it's completely unarmed, just by breaking up altercations
Yeah.
um, and things like that. You can be very helpful for the community.
And there's a lot that you can do, and what you're saying kind of jives with what I've always thought, that bringing guns is part of it, but it's not the only part of it, and it's not even necessarily the first part of it, right? I don't want to disrespect this dude at all, because this is a guy that was very important in spaces that I was in online. But I don't know if you guys remember, a few years ago, a guy named Garrett Foster was killed at a protest here in Austin. And he had a rifle on him, and he was, protecting his disabled wife in an intersection from an aggressive driver.
Yes.
And that was a huge loss for a lot of us. It was very sad. Um, and it just goes to show that it's like, just being armed by itself, and again, no criticism of Garrett Foster, but just being armed by itself doesn't guarantee that you're going to be safe. Especially in that context that you're talking about, as you're navigating these city streets. There's a lot of organization and a lot of planning that goes into keeping yourself safe while you're keeping other people safe. And I think that figuring out how you might do that unarmed before you think about how you might do it armed is pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. The planning is the biggest thing. Um, Pushing out a perimeter, and if there are people with bicycles or something else that can help you with mobility, help to temporarily halt traffic. Those things are extremely important. Yeah, you don't want to go in with a gun and no plan.
Well, and think about how, we always think of these physical means of security, but think about how important things like verbal judo, like de-escalation techniques are, to providing security, preventing a security issue from happening in the first place is extremely important. And I think, um, as little as people talk about it, it's starting to get better now, but we always talk about how people don't talk about medical enough. If you're a gun owner, if you're a gun owner, you know how to make holes, you should know how to patch holes. Well, what if you didn't need to even get to the point where you needed to make or patch holes, and you could just prevent the um, incident from happening in the first place? And I think learning de-escalation techniques and working on that is would be an excellent way to provide some sort of security. Also, I mean, they have hostage negotiators for a reason. Not, so every cop on the street doesn't just have to get a chance to take their turn yelling at the person holding a gun to somebody's head. Some people aren't educated for that kind of stuff, and I just think something like that is overlooked, as well.
Right, yeah. Everyone everyone has a place, everyone has a fit. And for some people guns are just a non-starter no matter what, be it because of mental health or because of incarceration or whatever. But there's a whole lot that goes in to community defense that has nothing to do with guns, and guns aren't even the first choice, just like you said. Um, so yeah, everybody has a role, everybody has a place, and it's just a matter of finding what you have the most fine-tuned skill that can you can improve the most upon.
Yeah, definitely. do you do you guys have an SRA around your area, or in Texas that you know of?
Yeah, there's quite a few chapters across Texas. There's a pretty big group of them here in Dallas and Fort Worth.
So this person asked the question, and
Why people should leave the SRA to join JBGC?
Well, I wouldn't, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really advocate for leaving anything. I think at the point that which you should leave something is when it makes you uncomfortable or is unsafe for you, and that could be the SRA or John Brown Gun Club or your job, whatever. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's experience is different.
It
Uh,
sounds to me like you guys have very similar goals. Between the SRA and the John Brown Gun Club, and you do a lot of the same outreach. That's been a really interesting conversation to have with my more conservative gun owning friends. Also, when I advocate or promote a local socialist rifle association or just one across the country, and I always get comments in my inbox saying, "Oh, what are you promoting socialism now?" And it's like, no, dude, I'm
No, I'm promoting
promoting
fucking community
changing people's
outreach, bro.
taillights for free and giving people sandwiches. Like
Yeah,
that.
Jesus.
What the fuck is wrong with you? When was the last time you did any of this? And it goes to show that I love the fact that you said earlier it's more it's you don't focus so much on the gun club. It's just the name. And I think a lot of people get caught up with the name Socialist Rifle Association and
Yeah.
like, oh, this is socialism, but it's literally just helping out your community. And I think John Brown Gun Club does a lot of the same stuff. And that's why, no disrespect to the person who asked that question, but I was like, it's worded a little funny because I don't think you'd have like, I don't think
it didn't seem to me like there was
there's a warring
conflict there.
faction. No, and I don't think it was meant as that, but
warring factions.
warring factions of the SRA and John Brown Gun Club conflicts. But yeah, that's
Okay, but who would win in a
yes.
fight, SRA or John Brown
Whose
Gun
dad
Club?
would beat up the other dad?
That's what the viewers want to know.
Probably-
Asking the hard-hitting
probably
questions.
ours.
Yeah, I think so.
I think John Brown would beat up Karl Marx 7 days a week.
I do too. Got a lot of reach.
He's a tall motherfucker.
That one got me.
Sorry. It's also 98% humidity in the room you're recording in, so that probably got you a little bit too.
Yeah. I got my my bucket of damp red up there at the.
You have a manual dehumidifier?
Yeah, it's called. You don't use damp red? Oh, you're in Connecticut.
I have a dehumidifier.
What? Well, like a machine, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
like
it's the same. It's the same thing.
electricity.
It's the damp red is just passive. It's just
Oh, is it like the thing it gets all gooey and shit over time?
Yeah.
You
You
throw
just
it out?
open it up and it sucks up the humidity, and you just throw it out. It's not very environmentally
Okay.
friendly, I suppose, but neither is a plug-in and a dehumidifier.
First, yeah, I guess you're right. First time I ever found one of those, and this is prime example of what happens at around the hour and a half mark. Guys, I
Yeah.
apologize. But,
And if you guys have any dehumidification stories, feel free to chime in.
yeah, this is prime dehumidifier story time. But the first time I ever noticed one of those, I didn't know what it was. It was this. My mom filled like a drinking glass full of these beads. And,
Why did she take it out of the?
It wasn't like. I don't know, because if you knew
shouldn't
my
have
mom,
done
you'd be
that.
like, "Oh, that's clearly a thing that she would do." I think the container broke or something like that, so it was like in a big, like a beer stein mug, type thing. But it was
Did you
after
drink
they'd
it?
been out. No, but it was after they'd been out for days, so it was 100% liquid, and I wasn't sure
Oh,
what
yeah.
it is. So I put my hand in it because that's what you do when you don't know what
He
liquid
just
something
put his
is.
hand in there.
I put like 3 fingers in the glass, and the consistency was like I drank heavy cream once as a kid, thinking it was milk, and it was similar. My reaction was similar because I had no idea what that liquid was. It looked like water. It wasn't dyed or anything like that, and it came out like I had just stuck my hand inside of an alien's butthole.
Well, good thing you used 3 fingers then, and not 4, or the whole hand.
Anyway, I hope everyone got something out of that little anecdote.
Next question. How's that for a segue?
Do either of you have any advice for people who are feeling like they don't have a place to go in the gun community? Because there's a ton of people who live in this country that don't have the luxury of being around people with similar views as them, who are gun owners. And I think sometimes it's a little intimidating for people who feel lost, like they don't know where to go. Do you have any tips for people in situations like that?
I think I would have two different suggestions. One is, um, you know, you may not know about things that are going on in your area. Do some digging. See if you can't find some mutual aid going on, um, or a protest group or something like that. And if you show up for those people, especially these days with how many people on the left are coming over on owning guns, you're bound to find someone to go shooting with. Uh, and the other suggestion would be, you can just start a JBGC, or you can start a community defense org. If you want to start anywhere town community defense, and start talking on social media about what you're about, what your goals are, and then other people like you will find you in your local community. So I think those are two ways you can get started.
That was actually my next question. So thanks for answering that. How to start a John Brown gun club, but that I think that's the perfect way to go about doing it. I mean, it's great that I don't even want to call it an organization. It's great that it's decentralized, that anyone can start one,
It's
and
like a
I
brand.
yeah, it's like a brand, you know, but cool and not sold out, you know,
We all own it.
and
We all own it, and no one owns it.
it's that's really cool, and I think for the people who can't find one, I think starting one with people who feel similar, or I mean, the internet's great. You know, you can start something with just yourself, and I'm sure some people will find you because there are probably people near you who are thinking the same thing you're thinking, and uh, will gravitate towards that kind of stuff, especially if, like you said, if you're going to similar events.
Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. You can start with one person. Um, we've heard of plenty of examples of that happening, where the whole org was just some person, and then eventually they got more people and they started working together, and it grew from there.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
I love that shit.
absolutely.
It's just
Well, and it
organic, man.
just
It's just grassroots,
yeah, yeah,
bottom up.
either one.
All right. So DW Kaiser says they're asking about your general kind of take on what the role of arms and I guess the threat of force is to being beneficial to social change as opposed to being sort of like passive and resistive.
Yeah, I think any real, I guess, social justice group or whatnot is going to have
Right.
inherently its own dissolution at the end of it. I mean, as long as everything's working towards a goal, that goal is a solution, and then there's no more use for it anymore. Now you're forward. Uh, and guns are, I mean, they play a role in the defending of ourselves and of our community, but they're just a very small piece of that puzzle, and I think it can become more of an issue when it becomes too important. Whenever that's when you change between
Like if you're forcing it.
right. So isn't an important tool? Probably, but it should never be the focus or the sole focus. That's what those single issues tunnel in on and either lose sight of deliberately or accidentally the worst things that are going on around it. It can't be an obsession. It has to just be a, a tool of that movement.
You kind of hit the nail on the head with. I've said this a bunch of times, and it keeps coming up, but you guys aren't. Um, oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to edit out that phone noise that my phone just made. Um, stop messaging me, Andrew.
Mute your phone.
I thought it's my computer. Anyway, um, you guys don't focus on the guns. You focus on the social issues, and the guns kind of come afterwards. And um, I think that's a good way to be, and it is I think like you said, focusing on the guns, you kind of lose track of the greater picture as a whole. So but I appreciate your answer there. That was a good answer to a question that we had to read first to understand how to ask. So we have I think two more questions.
Yeah, two more user
Two more
questions, and
questions.
then I think it's bedtime. For the listeners here, I know that
Well,
we're just disembodied voices playing through your car stereo, but in real life, for us, it's 11:14 Central Time. So we're getting
12:14 Eastern Standard Time.
yeah, we're fizzling out a little bit. But Lover Deadly One
But
wanted to know, um, what's your guys' take on OPSEC and internal conflict resolution? I don't know if they feel like those are related or if those are two questions that they're asking.
I mean, OPSEC is going to be key no matter what, and I think that's important. It's a really good highlight because there's no difference between us and anyone else that's doing some sort of work in their community to improve it. If what you're doing fundamentally threatens whatever is holding the reins of power at that time, that always opens up the potential that you could be targeted. There's people that are targeted for absolutely nothing aside from existing. And taking the means to protect yourself, either online or wearing a mask or disguising your identity with clothing. I mean, in all aspects of it, if you're gone, you're out of the fight. So you have to keep that focus in mind of just protecting yourself, because that can offhand affect people around you too, obviously.
absolutely.
Uh, what was the second part of the question?
Internal conflict resolution. How do you deal with that? I'm assuming they mean having issues within the John Brown Gun Club, or within like inter member conflict.
Right. That is also just as crucial, because I mean, eh, history is also filled with the demise of leftist movements, and a lot of the times that demise is rooted in abuse, in racism, in misogyny. Uh,
Yeah, and that infighting in leftist groups and that abuse of positions of power is almost like a meme for leftists right now.
sure, and it's so important to build that culture of places where it's safe to learn, it's safe to grow, uh, because not everything is a fight or has to be a fight. Or our whole purpose is the betterment of everyone around us. So it's really important in those spaces to just keep a culture of understanding and learning. And when those boundaries are crossed, it has to be fixed. You can't uh, just completely cut someone out of life or their existence. That's what incarceration is. So people have to be given that opportunity to grow and learn, and they have to accept the fact that they're going to be wrong and be able to learn from it. And if everybody holds themselves accountable to that and just builds that culture of love, then, you know, that's where the infighting goes away.
There you go, man.
Tex, I have to say that you have had some. Well, actually, both of you. Um, I if you guys didn't live half a country away, I would absolutely join because you have sold the shit out of the John Brown Gun Club this entire episode,
Yeah, y'all
as
making it
just
look
like
good.
a group of people I would want to spend as much time as possible with. It's really cool because I think the things that we and this is what's really important in my mind, the little nuances that we would disagree on, I think would be completely overshadowed by uh, what sounds like the importance of communication that y'all have, the importance of learning perspective, um, and all the things that make a family great. Um, there are Yeah, I don't know. I'm like gushing over here because hearing you guys talk about this is just like all the shit that I think
Are you feeling lonely over there in Connecticut? You don't have
I don't
a
have any cool
you
like
don't have any
groups
kind of
like
like
this.
fraternity over
No,
there?
I will say no. We do have a Connecticut John Brown Gun Club.
Oh yeah, of course.
Um,
You already said that. My
yes.
bad.
No.
They're
That's okay.
also they're
I
also
haven't
rad
had
as hell.
really. That's cool. We haven't had much interaction, but I see a couple of their posts every now and then, and I would hope with somebody sharing the namesake, they'd be cool as hell. But I didn't think any differently.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I really appreciate you saying that because I think that's the best thing we have is that we are our own community. Also, we're great friends and we take care of each other and we care about each
that's
other. And
awesome.
I think
Yeah,
that's paramount.
and that's so because I mean, you think about all these groups out there. Not even. I mean, you don't even have to isolate it to gun groups and community outreach groups. But how many groups out there of that share a bunch of people that share a title really care about each other as much as you guys seem to prioritize and care about actually affecting their community. I mean, sure there are tons, but I would say the widely publicized ones. I mean, you know, you think of like how commercialized Boy Scouts or Scouts and Girl Scouts have gotten. You know, things that used to be about fixing your community and things like that. And sorry to any scouts out there or girls who grew up in brownies or anything like that. Um, if you've had a different experience, but there really doesn't seem to be a whole lot out there like that now. And to hear how you guys essentially run your operation is refreshing because it makes me feel like I don't know shit about what I'm talking about, and that there are way more organizations out there than I thought who do this. Just because there has to be. Um,
Yeah,
and at least I know there's you guys. It's one more than I knew about beforehand. So
I think one important way to build that trust that I want to share with people is um, to take care of each other financially. And it feels kind of weird in this modern world to do something like that. But if one of our members has a flat tire or is out of ammo, I'm gonna go fix their flat tire or I'm gonna give them some ammo because I need them to watch my back. So like, we have our lives so separated. It's like pay your own bills, do your own work. It's like no, we need each other. We're gonna help each other, so that we're all stronger for it.
that's awesome. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
man.
Um,
For my part, I've never understood. I'm an individualist myself, but I've never understood why. Um, that so many people who call themselves individualists, really sort of eschew being part of a community or don't understand the importance of helping out the people around you that could potentially help you. And I think that I think it's just I think that idea is just so important to get across, especially in a place so typically stereotypically masculine and individualist as the gun community.
Yeah, absolutely.
awesome. Well, we are approaching the 2 hour mark right now, and I would say unless you guys have anything you want to contribute further, that is a great thing to end on. But we have a tradition that
We do.
it is if you've listened to any of our episodes, you know that we have to ask you either both or individually as collectively the John Brown Gun Club or both of you individually if you'd like. If you have a piece of advice for people, and it could be anything, it doesn't have to be gun related or community related. Andrew told me that you're not supposed to. What was your laundry hack that I didn't know about? Is that yours?
Uh, no,
Anyway, we
it was a dishwashing hack where you put citric acid in there, and then I said don't put it in the laundry because that'll fuck your laundry up.
yes. So I already forgot about it. But see, so it doesn't have to be anything gun related, but it can also be gun related if you want to. But if you had a piece of advice for anyone listening that could help make their lives easier, what would it be?
Yeah, I think just the world is a little bit scary, and it's really easy to feel alone sometimes, or a lot of times. And it's just really important to remember that even when you feel that way, you're not, because time after time, when we're left out to dry, the only people who save us are us. And the bigger that us is, the better we are. Um, and even though that future does seem a little bit scary, the destination is completely contingent on what our actions are today. So we still have an impact, and everybody's important. And also stay hydrated,
Hell yeah.
because that shit sucks.
I'm
Awesome.
about to go hydrate. I'll tell you what.
Bubble, do you have anything you want to contribute, or are you happy with that? I don't want to leave you hanging.
I don't know. That was really great. I feel like,
That's pretty hard to follow,
yeah, I feel like mine is not as impactful. Um,
but
Give your
it's
friends
equally as
guns.
important.
Buy them guns. Don't just be like, "Hey, guns are cool. You should
Yeah,
buy
hell
one
yeah.
someday." Give them a gun.
Just literally give them guns.
That nobody has bought me a gun yet,
Dude, nobody buys me guns.
to this date.
Nobody's ever bought me a gun.
But that is literally, people are always like, "Oh, I don't know how to shop for you.
Like,
I don't know
literally
what you
buy me
like." You
guns.
literally know what I like. You buy me a gun.
Anyone.
Bubble, I like it. I think more people should buy their friends guns. All right. Well, that is our show. We are at 1 hour and 55 minutes exactly right now. Tex, Bubble, if you guys want to plug yourselves real quick, you're more than welcome to. The gun club, yourselves individually, whatever you'd like, just to tell people how to find you and all that fun stuff.
Well, I'll say follow EFJGBC. Uh, Follow the Helm Fork John Brown Gun Club on Twitter and Instagram. Um, Start organizing. Start your own group. Join a group. Get out there.
Organize. Get out and do it.
Badass. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. This was an awesome episode. We're really happy that we got a chance to know you guys, and we hope people who are listening who don't have one of John Brown Gun Club near them, but want to join one, get the motivation to start one or look for one because of it. So
Absolutely.
thanks again,
Thanks for
and
having us on. It was great.
we're so happy to have you guys on. This was a lot of fun, and we will see everybody later, or listen to you. You'll listen to us later. That's the way it works.
You will listen.
Awesome. We won't see you. We're not looking at you. Not at all. All right.
Actually, before you guys go, I wanted to catch you guys. This question didn't make it into the episode. We're probably going to snip this off. Didn't really fit with the sort of like vibe of the episode. But Redwood Queer on Instagram, he sends us questions every time we ask. So I do want to ask just in case he asks what you guys said. He wanted to know what guns do you guys think don't get the attention they deserve?
So Yellow Peril Tactical actually replied to that when we posted it to our story, and they said Glocks, SIGs, M&Ps, and ARs get plenty of attention.
I was just thinking they would have something to say.
Yeah. I was like, "Yeah, what are you talking about? No gun that doesn't get attention deserves to get attention."
Uh,
I thought that was really funny. That's not. I don't think that's necessarily true always, but yeah. What do you guys think?
yeah, I think I don't want to accuse them of this because they try to balance it somewhat, but I think the Gucci gun flexing craze is not the best. You know, a lot of people don't have $20 saved. You can't go telling them to buy a $2,000 gun. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
yeah, so for that reason, I'm a big fan of cheap guns. I think the Taurus G3C is a great starter handgun. I'm a big fan of PSA products. I think those are the guns for the people.
PSA, the guns of the
And it,
people, the company that makes the engraved Trump Desert Eagle.
Yeah, their politics are not great. They
is
make
that
good cheap guns.
PSA?
Yeah.
Oh man. I honestly, we don't have a Grand Thumb budget here, so we're not out testing guns and stuff. But
Well, don't tell them
I
that.
know we have a huge budget. Everybody, we are doing
We're
all
extremely
kinds of
professional.
things in the backyard, doing fantastic things with money.
Science.
Anyway, yeah. Um, I have a couple of friends who have PSAs, and obviously this is anecdotal, but I've never heard anything bad about them. And one of them goes to the range weekly. Um, so
I have heard. This is based on no personal experience, just my sort of polling people. I have heard that from PSA you either get a fine functional weapon or a lemon. But because of the way PSA operates, they will fix or replace your gun, ideally, hopefully, eventually, if you do get a problem one.
Yeah, I think they've improved over time. I mean, I think arrow precision is probably the best value, but
Yeah,
yeah, they're good.
there's a lot of people that can only afford a PSA, and it's
yeah,
it's
Well, and that's like you said it. If money is a barrier between you and self defense, and you want an AR or you want a rifle, I mean any gun really. Like you said, a Taurus. Unless it's a Taurus judge, then we'll absolutely judge you
yeah,
forever.
not Taurus in
But
general.
what
Gotta
about
be
a
clear
Smith and
about
Wesson Governor?
is that the like the snub nose 50?
No, it's just the Smith and Wesson made a 410 45.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
it's not funny when you have to explain the joke.
No, I think that's really important that because I think we would all rather somebody get an inexpensive gun but have the means to defend themselves and their family than have to save up an extra $1,000 that may or may not. I mean, for some people that's just impossible. And I already hate that the right to self defense, it's a right, is financially restrictive to people
Yeah,
enough. So to shame people for the guns they have is not cash money.
yeah. I'm a big
No,
fan
not
of
at all.
cheap guns. As long as they're reliable. Um, and on the politics side, it's like, yeah, I don't like PSA's politics, but there's a lot worse in the gun industry. Like Car Arms
Yeah,
is owned by a Christian fascist cult that's based in Waco, Texas now.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That's what. Why did that take so long to get out?
I don't know. I guess
that's wild,
The
dude.
the NRA gun lobby is keeping that under wraps.
yeah, and
Jesus, Car
The
Arms,
liberals
who'd have
were
thought?
right.
it's not the only one too, right? Because Desert Tech is like a Mormon cult.
What's up with cults and their guns, man? Like, there's plenty of other companies that you can start that don't sell to cool people, but
Well, I think
we have
one
to
one of the essential features of a cult is the persecution
ability to
complex.
defend
And so,
itself. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure they. That's kind of ironic that you said Carr moved to Waco.
The
oh
cult, the
yeah.
church. It's called the Church of the AR-15.
Oh,
Oh, I know who you're
okay.
talking about.
Yeah, they moved to Waco. Carr, I think, is based in Houston, but they're owned by the cult that's in Waco.
That's the one with they do the headdresses with the bullets.
With the bullets,
Yeah,
right?
their leader is like a king, I guess. He wears a crown of bullets.
That's
He's not
wild.
okay.
No, they do mass
That's
weddings and all kinds of sketchy stuff.
So this kind of
Wow.
goes back to what you guys were talking about earlier about fetishizing weapons and outsizing the importance of firearms in your community. Because they're literally worshiping guns, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that is not.
It's like you wouldn't worship a hammer. Well, I mean, maybe someone would.
Yeah, that is not the
Awesome.
direction we want to go.
Well, we're definitely keeping this because this was a good This is a
It's
good little
it's little
nugget.
bonus content. Put it after the credits. Do
Yeah.
the credit music and
We
then
should-
fade back in and be like, you thought it
Oh,
was going to
that'd
be
be
more 20
funny.
minutes of dead audio. Not this time, Joker.
It's not my fault, okay? That's I've fixed those. I don't know what happens, but for some reason I don't pick this up until after we've uploaded it to the episode. I'll go through the hours it takes me to go through and edit an episode, and then for some reason I'll fuck up right at the end, and I'll put
Just
like
like right
20
at the
minutes of dead silence at the end of the episode after I upload it to the podcasts, and it's always like, Andrew, it's like, hey, just to let you know, there's 20 minutes of nothing at the end of our podcast again. Thanks, Jordan. And I'm like, all right,
Really
well, one
making
of
us
these days
look
I'll figure it out.
profesh.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is, because you're thinking like it's gonna be like a good Charlotte album, and there's gonna be some music at the end or some hidden content, but there's just nothing. It's like waiting to the end of Marvel credits and it just being like, okay, get out of the theater.
Just leave.
Yeah.
But
Well,
this
anyway.
time, there's a nugget.
This time, this will be there. To anyone who's listening to this, we hope you didn't have to stop your episode because you went to work and then restarted it thinking you were going to get something magical.
And this
but
this time when
I think
we
no, I
end,
think that was
it's
a good
real-
answer. Yeah. Well, all right. Anyway, now that we've held you guys hostage for an extra 4 minutes, we are super thankful for you both coming on and taking the time to answer our questions, answer our listeners' questions, and make us feel way more positive about organizations in the gun community than we definitely did before this. So thank you
yeah.
both for that.
And have a good
Yeah,
night's sleep.
Thank you so much for having us.
You are welcome.
Happy to have you. What were you saying, Andrew?
I was saying, have a good night's sleep.
Yes. Yeah, it's late there too. So we will we'll talk to you later then. Well, I'm sure we'll be in contact. I'll continue to stalk you on Instagram
I will never speak to any
All
of
right,
you
yeah.
ever again.
in a non-violent way and totally consensual. If that's okay.
You guys made it so fucking weird.